What is going on? I just had this perfect. Beautiful jerk right now. Hey guys, it's Shawn from SBSolo, and today on this episode of How We Do It, we're gonna go through the yearly maintenance that I do on my machines. Stuff like leveling the machine, cleaning my windows so they're crystal clear, and a few other odds and ends that I'll throw in along the way. With that, let's just get into it. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is make sure the machine's clean, table's clean, and we're gonna run the stone over across the top real lightly to make sure there's nothing in there. You know what? This thing is dirty. I'm gonna have to show you guys how to, hone a stone, make it flat again. I'll show that in a little bit. Anyway, put this on here, move it back and forth. Feels pretty good, and it's nice and flat. Most companies that come out to level your machine do not want a subplate on the table, because they don't know how flat the subplate is. I made the subplate. I measured the subplate. I had the subplate ground. Not Blanchard ground, but actually ground. It's 7075 aluminum. They ground it, and it was within 5/10. I threw it on a CMM when I was at a different company. It was within 5/10 flat and parallel. So they did a really good job on it. I know it's flat, so I can use this to indicate and tram off of. But most companies will either pull this off and use the table underneath, which the table is cupped where it's milled in each position. And honestly, this is better than the table itself, so it's bridging all those gaps and making it flat, so it's kind of nice. But they'll take a granite stone or a ground flat plate that'll bridge the whole thing. They'll set it on top, and it bridges all the irregularities of the table, and then you can indicate off that. That's how a lot of companies will do that. They just have that precision stuff that you can use. But for the most part, just go off your table and just understand that there's going to be cupping where you're running the indicator over, and I just take all the high spots and just kind of like, you got to average it out as you're running the indicator around it. So the next thing to do is throw an indicator in here and to see how far it's out in the first place. If you're getting vibration or steps as it's cutting, your head may be out of tram. So this is the first thing I'm going to check to make sure that well, I'm not sure if I'm going to make sure about it. I'm going to see if it's actually out, and if it's out, I'm going to feel good about it, because then I know that all my problems are because it's out of level. All right, so we're gonna bring this down, zero it out in front, and we're gonna spin it and see how far it's out. Looks like 5/10. It's going a thou and a half, 2 thou, 2.5, almost 3 thousandths out of tram, which is not good. And I had a feeling about it because I was getting some weird vibes going on. So that is the first indicator that I know that this thing needs to be leveled, and it's probably going to cure the issues that I was having, which was a little bit of vibration, especially when it flipped to this side because the indexer was on it. It was super heavy, so it must be rocking. So the next thing I'm going to do is check to make sure that, well, just check and see if the pucks underneath the machine are loose, and if they are, that's going to be a good indicator that it's out of level again. So let's go check that. All right, check it out. Super loose, not good. I kicked around every corner, and this one is super loose, so this is the main problem right here, which makes sense because, well, it's right on a crack, and yeah. So I'll be able to make it level, hopefully within 5/10 on a 13.5 inch circle. Factory is 5/10 on a 10-inch circle, or 5-inch radius, so hopefully we can do better than that. All right, so I'm going to pop this cover open so we can get access to the front jack screws. Just lift it up. Realistically, you're going to look through this and you're going to reach your hand under here to twist it. But do that on the other side, and also you're going to have to move your coolant tank out of the way. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to reach all the jack screws. So the next thing we're going to do is break all these nuts loose on the jack screws all the way around the machine. If you have 4, break all 4 of them. If you have 6, break all 6 of them loose, because you need every one of them loose. So if you have a machine that has 6 pucks, you need to release the center pucks in between on both sides. Make sure they're fully loose. You don't want them tight or touching the pad at all while you're trying to level the machine. That's the very, very last thing you do. So just make sure it's being touched on all 4 corners and release the center ones. So this is a good time to actually look. Just make sure that you actually have grease on your pucks. You want grease on your pucks so it's easier to turn and you don't get seized up. So now we want to pull out our level, and this is a precision level. If it's really, really out of level, you can get just a regular, carpenter's level and get it close and then bring this in. This is over 12-inch span. This is 2.5 tenths accuracy. So it's pretty high precision. So the first thing you need to do is calibrate your level. And what I do is I put it where I want it to be, and then I will take a pen and mark where this thing's going to sit. So I put it in the right spot every time. That way I know it's going to go in the right spot, and there could be some weird hanger over here that may lift it or something like that. So we'll put it right back in the box that I marked. And what I'm looking for is to see where the bubble lands with it this way. And then what I do is I spin it 180 degrees. And you got to make sure the bubble lands the same way and hits the same lines in the same spot. If it doesn't, that means it's it needs to be calibrated. And what you're trying to do is when you spin it 180, you're trying to get the same reading. And you use this little Allen key and you just adjust it. And it's just very, very fine adjustment. It can take a little bit, but we're going to do that now. It's off about a mark. So I'm going to get it to be perfect, and then we'll go on to leveling the machine. So my level has been calibrated. It matches both ways when I spin it 180 degrees. And this is how far I'm out. So that means that this side needs to go up. So then we want to spin it 90 degrees so you can see where the bubble's at. You can see it's dropping. Bubbles going down. So that means this side needs to go up. So that tells me this corner over here needs to go up. And that makes sense because the puck wasn't touching over there. So let's go over there and jack it up a little bit and just see how far we can go. All right, so before we get too carried away trying to level this machine, make sure your machine is at the right height. This one I think is supposed to be at 3 inches off the ground, but in reality, I keep it as low as possible to make sure the coolant tank goes under and then my little hoist can go under, because you don't want it up on stilts because it could vibrate. You got these little skinny, pegs holding up this machine, and it's best to have it drop down. But I figured I'd mention that because if you're bringing it in new and, they reeled them up or the riggers rigged them up or down, you're going to be leveling your machine out, then all of a sudden you're done and you realize you can't get your coolant tank in. So that's not an ideal situation. So just be aware of that. So I have a 3/4 wrench, and I'm just going to tighten it till it touches, and then I'm just going to give it a little bit more, and let's go look and see what that looks like. So as you can see, we've already moved it quite a bit. So we just need to move it just a little bit more to get it somewhat close. All right, when I mean just a little bit, just think every degree is 2/10. So I just barely want to tap it. I mean, you're barely tapping it. You're not putting hardly any pressure on it. Okay, so you just got to be able to just do it a little bit and just see where that goes, and then check it out again. All right, so that a little bit of adjustment, we got it dead level. Let's spin it 90 degrees. See where this bubble goes. It's pulling back. So we're dead on the money. I mean, it can't be any better than that. I mean, that thing came out so good, front and back. All we had to do is jack up that back corner by looking at the level, and man, I'm pretty happy with that. So we're pretty much done, except we're not done, okay? We still have to look for twist. You're like, what is twist? Well, twist is twisting the casting. And so what I have to do is run the axis back and forth to make sure that the bubble isn't turning one way or the other. And if it is, that means two opposing points, kitty quarter from each other, are jacked too heavy and they're too light on the other opposing one. So that is how you get the tram dead perfect. You want your table to be perfect all the way through and level all the way through, because the whole goal is to mechanically get the machine as best you can. And then if you can't get the machine level at the end of it and tram at the end of it, then that's when you start shimming the spindle and all those types of things. But the first thing you're going to do is make sure everything is level through all the kinematics of the machine. All right, so here we have it perfectly zeroed, center of the table. Now let's move this table back. Show you how far this goes out of level. All right, you do have to let these levels settle. But look at that, it's already probably like a thousandths out. Doesn't seem like much, but it is a lot when you're trying to tram something in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the back two bolts, jack bolts, they leveled out the back, and then I'm going to come all the way forward and I'm going to get the front two bolts and level those out. So according to the level, when I reeled the y-axis all the way to the back, this side was low. So what I have to do is jack this up. But the thing is, if I jack the bubble up all the way till it's level again, then it's going to tip the machine up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it a little bit here, and then I'm actually going to take a little bit out of this one. Because if I jack that corner up, it'll make it level this way, but then it's going to jack the whole machine up this way. So I'm trying to cut it in half by taking a little bit out of here and then adding a little bit to that footing. So one thing to note that you can't see me doing is that when I'm jacking the screws up and down, I'm really trying to only go up. That way I'm keeping tension on the screw versus backing it off a little bit. If I do have to back it off or I feel like I went too far, I'll back it off past and then bring it back up. It's almost like, you know, taking the backlash out of a ball screw. I'm always just trying to keep the tension on the screw itself. So, all right, check it out. We've got it fully leveled from the back with the y-axis all the way to the back. So let's move it all the way forward and do the same thing on the front jack screws. All right, so now I'm within 1 mark of being out of twist on both front to back. And at this point, I will independently move the low side corner. So if this back corner is low, I'm going to jack that up just a little bit. And then if this front corner is low, I'm going to jack that up. So one thing you may run into is when you're going back and forth kitty corner to kitty corner, you may not be able to get the full twist out because you're fighting it. It's going back and forth, back and forth. So at that point, if you can't get the twist out by going corner to corner, go side to side. So if I reel it all the way back on the y-axis, only touch that back right corner or only touch this front right corner and get it to where it's perfectly with no twist, and then lift both the front and back at the same amount. So that way you kind of tip it in like that, but you're not adjusting this way. All right, so I have it level front and back. It's perfectly level this way, but now it's dipped down a little bit in the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jack both these bolts the same amount. So you're just kind of trying to tip the machine up. At this point, I won't even touch the back two posts because you know that's dead even. If it goes out of level, it's because of the front that you're adjusting. So you have to like either back one off or tighten one up and just try and get that front to back perfect and just make sure that twist is out of the front and you should be good to go. So before I did all this, I cleaned my floor so I didn't get all dirty. But I can tell you right now that techs love a dirty floor. That way when they come home, they can show their significant other that they worked really hard and they might feel sorry for them and bake them some cookies. All right, can you see the bubble? In between the lines, perfect, front to back. Now let's spin this within our marks. Pretty close. I'm gonna call that close enough. Now let's move this thing back. All right, check it out. It's perfect front to back. This is the point in time where you probably want to step back, pat yourself on the back, take a picture, and post it on Instagram because you're just a badass. So this is the stage now where we have to tighten this nut on all 4 corners. Now remember, we haven't even touched the center bolts yet, the jack bolts yet. We haven't even touched those. Those are still loose. We don't need to worry about that. What we want to do though is you don't want to over tighten these. You want to snug them and make sure, very critical, that this jack bolt doesn't move. So I put a little pressure on it and just tighten it a little bit. And you're just trying to get it snug. You're not trying to reef on it. Otherwise, it's going to throw your machine out of level. So as I'm trying to get the tram kicked in, you know, using the 2 feet or the 2 center feet underneath, you don't want to jack them up too hard because you will lift the other 4 corners up and you'll throw this thing out of level. So as you're doing that, go back and forth with the level 90 degrees to make sure it didn't twist or do anything weird. Because if you did, then you got to back them off. The reason why those jack bolts are there is for support, and then try and get the belly out of your ways. On a small machine like this that has a very short casting, you really can't put a lot of pressure on them before they start to relieve pressure on the other 4 corners, and the other 4 corners is what keeps this machine stable. So there's not much you can do, and I don't have a belly. It's not curved or anything like that as I move it back and forth. But on a bigger machine, you can jack those up a little bit harder, and you're not going to dictate those other 4 corners because it's got a longer casting that can handle more pressure because it's going to be sacked out, and then you can try and get that to be a little more level. So just want to bring that up. You know, it's not really an issue with my machine, but just make sure that when you're jacking those center screws up, you're not throwing this back out of level and you're not releasing pressure off the 4 corners. So this is what I have for final tram, and it's not as good as I was hoping. So I'm going to do it right in the quadrant. So let's zero that out. Right in the quadrant there. We'll pull it over to this quadrant. So we're pretty much almost zero there. Let's go back here. And we're about 3/10 off there. So about 3/10 total on this side. It's got a little bit of a dip right there, but not worried about that. I'm just looking for, you know, the square. So if when I go this way, it dips off real fast. And then in this quadrant, I'm about 1 2/10. So I was really hoping for this to come out much better. We did start with almost 3 thousandths out, and we got to 1 2/10, which is pretty good on a 14-inch circle. It's all right, but you know, I definitely think something's happening over here. There's not much I can do about it, but that is how you level a machine. I was so hoping I'd be within 5/10, but yeah, we can only do what we can do. So I did want to mention that I use a tool in the taper when I'm doing my tram, and the reason I do that is because when I use a mag base versus putting the spindle and having it in the spindle loading the bearings, I get different readings for some reason, and the machine comes out better if I have it loaded in the spindle. The factory is they use mag bases on the spindle without the bearings loaded, and I'm not sure why they do that, because you know you're machining with it, you know, a tool in the spindle, so why not load the spindle while you tram it? But I don't know what's right. I imagine just you do what the factory does and use the mag base, but for me, I'm going to use this load in the spindle with the drawbar pulling against it, and I like it better, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, guys, the next morning I came in and I was super frustrated not being able to get my newer machine trammed out perfectly, so I wanted to go to this machine and see if I can level it and see how fast I could do it. So after I had the machine all cleaned up and cleared, by the time I broke the bolts loose, got it leveled and tightened back up, I did it in 22 minutes. And I got it within 4/10, under 4/10 at a 13.5-inch circle diameter as far as tram goes. So feeling pretty good about that. I was definitely like getting in my head. I was just so annoyed last night about thinking about it. But yeah, something's definitely going on over there on the older machine. I did go and check the older machine again to try some stuff. And it's really weird. I can put the level on the right side, it's level, the center, it's level, but I go to the left side and it drops off about 3 increments, which is 6/10, a little bit over 6/10, which is what I'm seeing on the indicator, because the indicator runs really nice on that right side, you know, all the way through the motion. And then I put a needle down on the table and I ran the X all the way through the whole, you know, travel. And I basically got 3/10, I think I got out of that. So at least where the end mill's at, and as long as I'm not running a 13-inch fly cutter, I should be perfect. It won't matter. It's just when it's over on the left, but if the spindle's always underneath, the table underneath it is always dead accurate, I guess it really isn't going to affect me much. So, and then again, it's only 1 2/10 off total on a 14-inch circle. So anyway, I'm just trying to justify it in my head that it's fine. So another thing I do yearly is I clean my stones. You can see these two guys. They're pretty nasty. Yeah, so to do that, I take this basically diamond plate. Check it out. It's this diamond plate. Got it off eBay. Or not eBay, I got it off Amazon. It was like $100. But it's the diamond plate. It's good within 2 thousandths flatness. Basically, you take your stones and put them in water. Just soak them in there for about 10 minutes. All right, so our stones have been soaking for about 10 minutes, and basically I just gonna go over the top of it, just lightly. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there. Actually, I'm hardly putting any pressure. I'm just letting the stone do its work. And I just flip it, and then keep on rinsing your stone off. Just go across a little bit at a time. And I'd rinse this off a little bit too. Actually, you could probably just do this in the water as you're dunking it, make it easier. So what will happen is this will start to load up. So I take some WD, throw it on here, and then I just scrub it with some Scotch-Brite. Let's go over it like that. Get that nastiness, and then I just take some cleaner, whatever you got. This is some mass airflow sensor cleaner, but contact cleaner, and Just clean it off. Probably should be using gloves, but yeah, it just comes off pretty clean. So there it is, all nice and flat again. Nice and clean. No aluminum jammed in there and packed on there. Have my other stone that I cleaned up as well. So now we're ready for business, another year of stoning. All right, my final act is to clean my windows. And I've made a video on this on my Instagram channel, SBSolo Co. I have a full video on this, but I figured I'd put it in here because, you know, it's the full year maintenance. And basically, I've tried everything to clean these windows. I mean, it's fully clean. I've cleaned it with Simple Green and contact cleaner. This is as clean as it's gonna get. I've tried CLR, I've tried WD-40, I've tried stove window cleaner. It doesn't work unless I'm doing it like once a week. And since I left this for so long, I just can't get it done. So what I have to do is actually use glass buffing cleaner. And I use a rotary buffer. So I'm just gonna show you how I do it and how good it gets. All right, let's hop in here, get after it. I gotta put my safety glasses on, make sure this stuff doesn't fly in my face. You might have to do this twice through, depends how nasty it is. If you keep up on it, you don't really necessarily need to do this, but I just want to show you that you actually can get your glass pretty crystal clear. All right, looking pretty good. I got to get up here a little bit more. You can see that it's hazy. This side is way better. So I've been kind of keeping up on this side. The left side I haven't been keeping up on because I'm usually looking through the glass like right here versus on the other side. All right, almost done, but I got a cherry to put on top. Hold on. All right, here we go. Gonna put a screen on here. So we're gonna put this on here about right there. And I have no idea how this is gonna work, but we are gonna try it. Man, I got it crooked. It's crooked. That's gonna annoy the shit out of me. That's so annoying. I can't believe I did that. Amazon fine. It's a clear glass shield for a Tesla. Basically just covers it up. I don't know how it's gonna perform, but I was recommended by a couple guys on Instagram to try it out, so that's what we're gonna do. So last but not least, I end up cleaning the tool changers out at the end of the year. Really, really good. So I'll basically hose them out and then blow them out and then make sure there's no chips, you know, stuck in the top, or, you know, make sure the plungers all work and the springs are all looking good. And then, you know, lube up the tracks up here. And then on this machine, I get shuttle fault. Like, seems like every 2 years I'll get a shuttle fault. I'll start having problems with the Z going up when it does a tool change. And that's because there's two switches in here and one of them usually gets stuck and you can't reach it from the inside of this. So I have to take this cover off and then I have to basically pull the plate off where the motor is. And I end up scrubbing them and cleaning them with WD-40 and, you know, get them, you know, working real good, and they'll last me 2 years. And inside there's a little cam roller that goes in there. I also clean all the chips out and lube that up and then reseal it. So I do that, and I also change the cabinet filters. I do that, and then lastly, the sumps. Got to clean the sumps. I wear my best dress, and I get in there and get dirty with it, and just get it done and have the headphones in and just go after it. But yeah, other than that, that is what I do for my yearly maintenance. Oh yeah, that was a good one. I'm feeling my age right now. That's a lot of work. You know, this is the one time I wish I had an employee. For the most part, came out pretty good. Everything's clean. I have a leveled machine. If I want to do any fixturing, this is when I'm going to do it, right after I level the machine. If I had fixturing to do previously in the middle of the year, I'd probably re-level it if it had to be really, really accurate fixturing and have the life of me. That way I don't have compounding tolerances and I don't have to deal with, you know, shifting it, and so it matches my CAD. But as far as that goes, I'm going to go kick back, maybe watch some Practical Machinist videos on YouTube. And as far as you guys, hope to see you on the next episode, how we do it. And yeah, catch you guys later.